Hi, it's Kellene Bishop, the Preparedness Pro, and today I'm going to show you what to do with a bounty of lemons. I ordered a 40-pound case of lemons last week from bountifulbaskets.org, and I'm really excited about all the possibilities. It was one of the things that I hadn't quite figured out what I was going to do for a lot of my recipes. But today I'm going to show you just a few points that I discovered, and that's why I ordered the 40-pound case, because it was pretty exciting when I figured out what I could do to store my lemons. So there's several different ways. We're just going to talk about a couple of them today though. One is really easy. All you do is you take a small jar like this, and you're going to get a lot of kosher salt. You're going to put just about a ½ inch of kosher salt in the bottom of the jar. So, and then you're going to take big, beautiful lemons. There's a big difference between the kind of lemon that you want and the kind of lemon that you get nowadays. I don't even mess with these. The skin is very thin. They'll go bad very quickly, whereas these are going to have a lot more zest, which I always have to use. I never waste anything of the lemon, including the membranes inside too when you have excess of that. Anyway, so you want the big lemons. How to tell whether or not you've got a juicier lemon or a better lemon is actually based on the shape. The longer that they are, the better your lemon will taste, because it stayed on the tree a little bit longer and it grew to that oval shape. Whereas the rounder ones, they may have been picked just a little bit too soon. It's only subtle enough of a taste if you're a snob like me. So, but you just learned a little something. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to slice these lemons, and I just want them just about that thick. Just pretty enough to soak up the salt. And you're going to want a wide mouth jar. Now you can do this in a quart or you can do it in a pint. I like to do mine in the pint jars because of how I use them. I'm more likely, with just the two of us here, I'm more likely to go through a pint better than a quart. So all I'm going to do is just drop this in to the pint, and I'm going to put some more salt on here, probably about a teaspoon or so, and then drop the next one in and repeat. Next, repeat, and next. And it's okay, you want to fill it just up to the ring like you would any type of canning. I'm going to cut another big piece actually. You really want to make sure that you clean your lemons very well. They may say organic, but the USDA allows over 21 different chemicals that you and I would probably turn up our nose at to be used on something and still have it called organic. So you really want to make sure you use a good produce cleaner and soak the produce. Okay, we're good. Now again, make sure that your jar is perfectly clean and sanitized. I like to put mine through the sanitize cycle in the dishwasher or just clean it by hand. And then you're going to put the lid on, and you're going to let this sit for about 3 days. And once it has sat for 3 days, you have beautifully preserved whole lemons. You can go ahead and then water bath these jars, which is what I will do. Water bath them, and then they can sit on your shelf. You have about a year to a year and a half at the most to go through them. It's going to be a really strong taste. When you're ready to use a lemon, you're going to want to rinse it off just a little bit if there's still any kernels, if you will, of the salt on there. But it's really simple, and I'll have the instructions written out for you on the blog at preparednesspro.com. So that's method number one. This will give you so many possibilities for both savory and sweet dishes. But I'm going to show you now a savory way of preserving your lemons. That requires a 30-day sit and stew time period. But then after that, as long as you keep it in an airtight container, you have a year to 2 years to use these other lemons. So let's show you what that one is. That wonderful method. One of the most valuable ways of using lemons to me is the zest, and so we'll talk about that, about preserving the zest as well. But in the meantime, we're just going to do this little recipe here. We want probably about 2 to 3 tablespoons of fennel seeds, and I want about 5 big cinnamon sticks. And then I'm just going to do a tablespoon of peppercorns. And then I'm going to do a couple tablespoons of coriander seeds. You might not know, but coriander seeds are what grows your cilantro. And just a couple of basil leaves, about a couple halves here. You know, if it's a mainstream spice, this really is the less expensive way to purchase it. A bottle about this size of bay leaves will cost you $7 to $10, whereas this might cost you $5 to $7. Okay, and then we've got, of course, some sea salt. You can use sea salt or kosher, but you want that big textured salt. Lots and lots, okay? Alright, so I've got lots of salt. You want it to look more like seasoned salt rather than a little bit of salt in your seasoning. So I've got lots of salt. And then I'm just going to take my modeler. A little pestle. You don't have to break this up completely, just I want a little bit, not pieces flying. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is prepare the lemons. What you want to do on the lemons, I cut off just that little tip there, and then you're going to want to cut down your lemon into quarter pieces, but you don't want to go all the way to the end, so like so. Cut them into quarter pieces. Ta-da. So now you've got fourths. And then you're going to take this seasoned salt and put it in through the cracks here. Like so. And it's okay, it's going to be bulging just a little bit. And then you want to put it in an airtight container, like so. Now you can use a container like this, or you can use a half-gallon mason jar if you prefer. But the tighter packed that you have these, the prettier it will look as it goes. And you're just going to fill this up, and when you're done, you're going to put the rest of the seasoning salt in. So let's do a few of these here. First we'll get some lemons cut. Now what's going to be fabulous about this is the tastes that you're going to be able to do. The profiles are just going to be so yummy. This is known, very well known in the Moroccan cuisine. I love putting these kinds of lemons, just the lemon, mush it up a little bit, but just the lemon on top of fish or couscous. Just wonderful, wonderful way to use these. When you pull the lemon out of this, when you're ready to use one of the preserved lemons, you can rinse it off to make the flavors a little bit more subtle, or just keep them on there. And I like to puree them sometimes and slather them on fish or chicken. Again, you just want to go just barely enough down to the bottom. Alright, now let's do some stuffing. Stuffing of the salt. So again, I'm just going to put right there and right there. Another one in. I like to have them upright. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's alright. I feel like I'm stuffing little tulips. I wish you could smell this combination. It really is beautiful. Will you check into getting smell-o-vision, please, for me? Can't be that expensive, right? We can create entire items in a polymer by printing them off in a 3D printer. Okay, I like to really pack these in there nice and tight on my main level. And just see how pretty they are? Really are nice. And then continue stacking from there. Like so. So I would fill up this jar, and then once it's full, I just put the remaining ingredients. You want enough salt and herb mixture to really pack that salt in there. And then all you're going to have to do, this isn't exactly airtight like a canning jar would do, because this lid just kind of goes on like a cookie lid. So what I would do is put some saran wrap over the top. And I like the heat from my hand to rub over the plastic to get it to adhere better. And now you're fine. Now you've got a good enough airtight. And this is going to sit for 30 days. And it's just going to get more and more combined in those flavors in there. And then after 30 days, I can use the lemons and on fish, chicken, vegetables, just all kinds of fabulous possibilities. You'll really, really, really like this particular recipe. Okay, next, of course, in my opinion, the best way, and I'm not going to throw these out, you'll understand why in a minute. One of the best ways to use lemon, when I do a liver cleanse, and the liver cleanse requires about a tablespoon of fresh squeezed lemon. And of course, having those on hand all the time is kind of a hassle. And I like to preserve things and know that I'll still have my fresh squeezed lemon as opposed to the highly pasteurized stuff, even in a long-term power outage. So I looked at a couple of methods we have. And what I would do first is I would zest the lemon, because we're going to preserve that lemon zest as well. You can zest it with a microplane, and just make sure you don't get any of the white pith, because that's your bitter part. Or what I like to do, because it gives me more possibilities, is I like to use this little handy dandy toy, if you will. I got it from Pampered Chef, but you can obviously get it probably at Bed Bath & Beyond or any kitchen store. I'm sure those finer kitchen stores have them. So I am just taking the peel off in one big string, because that way I can use it for some beautiful decor, if you will. So I would do that for all of my lemons. Any of this that I had left, I would either use a potato peeler, or I would go ahead and do that, get the rest of that on the microplane, like so. But then what I would do is just take this baking sheet and put some parchment paper on it. Set the oven at 180 to 230 degrees, depends on what your oven does. Not all of them will do that. And then I just lay the strings down here, like so. Even these little nubs from what I was doing earlier. And or the zest. This can also be done, by the way, with orange zest, and I've got a little bit of mix in here. I like to do them just like this. You can spread out your zest a little bit more, but you don't have to. Chances are it's going to come in a little pile as you scrape it from the cutting board. And then I would put this in the oven until it was completely dry. And that would be about 2-3 hours, depending on what heat you're using. Once it's completely dry, then you return it to a mason jar, nice, clean, sterilized mason jar. And then you would seal the mason jar through the Food Saver method. So I have a complete video on the YouTube channel showing you the food saver method, but just as a reminder, just take your food saver that has the little air port and you put the flat lid on the jar like so. I would have one jar with the pieces like this, the dried out pieces, and this would be included in that, and I would have one jar just for the finer zest, which I typically do in the half pints. Anyway, you will go ahead and put pieces in here and then put your flat lid on, your mason jar attachment, and your little air tube. You would just turn on your food saver, let it expel all the oxygen from here, and it will stop on its own accord. Then what you need to do is pull the tube out first. You try to pull this off first while the tube's still attached. You're likely to dislodge your lid. Of course, I dislodged it there because it wasn't actually sealed. Then I label it and keep it in a cool, dark environment, and you'll have easy a year or two to use your fabulous zest. Now, when you have the finer zest, you don't want to put this on directly because it's so fine it could get through your tube. I put the finer zest in the little half pint jars, and because they're finer, I actually put them inside the little, they're going to be dry, inside the little cupcake paper, and I do that just so that I have my shape right. And then I put a cupcake paper upside down. And the reason why I do that is so that the fine zest doesn't clog up my tubing. So then I would put my tubing on, and then my attachment, then the air port, turn it on, it'll extract all of the oxygen out of there without clogging up my tube. So it's very, very simple. And again, you've got a nice long shelf life on this. 1 year, 2 years, easy. I have extended mine and still got nice flavor from it. One of the things I've noticed is my preserved lemons, they're nice and tangy, very powerful, but sometimes they need just a little extra oomph, and that's when I would use the zest from the lemon. So, we got lots of possibilities here. Be sure to keep checking back with us. I'm going to be sharing with you how to preserve the lemon juice, as well as how to do all kinds of fabulous recipes with these kind of lemons. Understand that you can do just about all of this in about another dozen different ways to preserve. You can preserve oranges, you can preserve grapefruit with oranges, you can preserve grapefruit with lemons, fabulous, fabulous ways. There's several different methods that we have just preserving these. Some will only last a couple of weeks, but some will last a couple of years. So have fun out there. Lemon curd, lemonade, obviously, having access to that anytime that you want. Wonderful. And I make this really, really yummy Mile High lemon pie. That's my husband's favorite dessert that I make for him. And it's made just by these preserved lemons. I hope you enjoy, and I hope this gives you a little bit of inspiration and all kinds of ideas of some fabulous things you can create for yourself. For today, this is Kellene Bishop, the Preparedness Pro. I hope you'll check on our website at preparednesspro.com. We'll see you next time.